Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We're here live on Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, and we are so excited that you are here with us today. We are actually right in the middle of um, making sure that you have access to all of our newer episodes. So if you go to our channel and you don't see all the newer episodes on there, do not fret. They will be there this afternoon, so you will have access to them and you'll be able to see some of our newer episodes, especially the ones with Coach Crystal, because we know that a lot of people were really impressed and excited about the information she provided us with the other day. And so we want to just make sure those things are available to you. And we plan to make sure that we have access to them within the next day after the episode has aired. So do realize that we are doing this. We're doing this. This is moving, and we're excited. About the movements that's been made. We want to say thank you again to Lux Vision Studios. They have been so gracious to stream us and make sure that our episodes are coming across in a way that is pleasing to the viewer, and that you will have, with excellence, all of the material that we're providing. And so we just want to say thank you to them because they donate their time to do this for us. And this is an amazing feat, to make sure that it's available on all the different platforms where we are. Because we are currently on Meta, on Twitch, on Instagram, TikTok, and X, and I believe, very, very soon we'll be on LinkedIn, so we want you to have access to things that are, that we are providing, and we want to make sure that it's coming across in a way that you can go back and get your notes and the summaries and all of that and have the material usable to you as soon as possible. Well, with that said, we're going to start with a little video today that talks about, what we're doing. Today is Focus Friday, and we're starting a very new series for Focus Fridays, which we're focusing on decision-making excellence. And so since we're focusing in on decision-making excellence, we got to start somewhere in that matrix. And so we want to start with the psychology of decision-making and helping people to understand what goes into making a decision and how your decisions are impacted by certain kinds of biases and what it is that you need to do to be able to make decisions faster, to make them, better, and to make informed decisions. We're going to talk about all that today. So let's get started with our video.
Focus Fridays. For the next 10 weeks, we are focusing in on decision-making excellence. This series is designed for leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs who aim to make better, smarter, and faster decisions in every aspect of life and business. We all face countless decisions each day, from small choices like what to eat for breakfast to major ones like steering the direction of a company. But what if I told you that even the most seasoned decision makers, including yourself, fall prey to unconscious mental shortcuts, also known as cognitive biases? In this series, we'll dive into the fascinating world of decision-making psychology and uncover the hidden forces that influence our judgments. We'll explore how cognitive biases shape your thoughts, how to recognize them, and most importantly, how to overcome them. From confirmation bias, where you unconsciously seek out information that supports your beliefs, to anchoring bias, where the first piece of information you hear sets the tone for everything that follows. And let's not forget the availability heuristic, which makes us overestimate the likelihood of events simply because they are fresh in our memory. The key to overcoming these biases lies in a combination of self-awareness and structured decision-making strategies. In each episode, we will provide you with practical tools to sharpen your decision-making skills. Whether it's navigating your next business deal, launching a new project, or simply making everyday choices with confidence, these techniques will empower you to lead with clarity. We'll introduce powerful frameworks like the decision matrix, which evaluates options based on set criteria, or the pros and cons analysis, an age-old yet effective tool to weigh choices. We'll also dive deep into SWOT analysis to help you assess strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in every situation. Because we believe that making excellent decisions isn't just about gathering information, it's about being mindful of your own thought processes and challenging your assumptions. In this podcast, you'll hear from top leaders and experts who've mastered the art of decision-making. You'll learn how they apply mindfulness, critical thinking, and feedback to make informed choices, avoid costly mistakes, and push their organizations to new heights. Each episode will challenge you to think deeper, act smarter, and lead with confidence. We'll help you master the mental game of decision-making so that you can take control of your future, no matter how complex the challenge. So whether you're an entrepreneur launching a new venture, a CEO navigating market challenges, or simply looking to make better personal decisions, this podcast is for you. Join us as we explore the psychology of decision-making, one episode at a time. Sharpen your mind, strengthen your leadership, and unlock the power of exceptional decision-making. Tune in to focus on decision-making excellence and start making decisions that matter.
All right. So, we are like right here on the precipice of, understanding the concepts that are behind our decision making. Sometimes people who are really looking to see, what it is that they need to do, they're not thinking about it from the standpoint of what's behind my thoughts. Why did I think it through it that way? Or what could I have done differently that would have allowed me to get to a faster decision? Or, what are the things that, I need to be paying attention to that will help me, make the decisions that are based on the data that we collected. Okay. Some people, they collect all the data and then they make a decision that has nothing whatsoever to do with what they collected, the information that they found out. So we're going to dive into this today and we're going to kind of see how do we, fix it? What is it that we can do to have a process that makes sense, in our decision making, strategies. Let's look at the slides. Okay. All right, so I want to give me just a second because what I want to do here is I want to make sure that I have access to all of the pieces that I need to have. So, okay, here we go. All right. Okay, so as we're looking at the psychology of decision making, what we want to be thinking about, is what are the tools? What are the tools? And, so one of the first things we got to understand is that when we're looking at the tools that we need to have in order for us to make a decision, we also need to be paying attention to what undergirds everything. So let's talk about cognitive bias. What is that? Well, cognitive biases are mental shortcuts that our brains use to simplify complex information and make decisions quickly. And so we don't necessarily think about it, as being sometimes a negative thing, that our brain is able to, give us an answer very fast. But sometimes it is because these mental shortcuts that our brains are using to help us save effort what they're based on is not necessarily always something that is going to be beneficial. And so we need to understand that cognitive biases are, useful, but they're sometimes going to lead us down the road or pathway to an error in judgment. And that error could affect our decision making in a way that is not what we intended. We want to have an understanding, that uh, allows us to see these common cognitive biases and, understand that, what we need to remove from the forefront of our mind, or as what we have called in the past, the front of the refrigerator. And give us the opportunity to make more informed and rational decisions. So, what is confirmation bias? Well, it's seeking information that confirms our existing beliefs. It's what causes us to have self fulfilling prophecies. We come up with a way of seeing the world that only is, based on what we currently believes is the right way of doing things, or the easiest way of doing things. Sometimes also will be a part of, that confirmation bias. And let me say this to you, that there are reasons why people need to be thinking about all of what goes into, your existing belief system. Sometimes things that you believe to be true, or that you believe to be right, or that you believe to be the way that things should go, turn out to not be the best practice or the truth, that you should use, or for that matter, they turn out to just be a bad choice. Okay. And so when you're looking at confirmation bias, you want to understand that it's a tendency to favor information that confirms a pre-existing belief, even if that existing belief is not true, right, or the best decision, at the time. And while, this belief is there, you're ignoring or downplaying the contradictory evidence, things that could turn out to be what's important. And so, I mean, I want to make sure that you understand, um, it's just, it's important that you are not closed-minded. I see Coach Crystal saying this is a fun and interesting topic, and we need to keep an open mind. We do. Or we need to make sure that we're not indifferent to things of this nature, because there are a lot of people who don't see this in the right way. And so, for that reason, they are willing to have confirmation bias be the way forward for them and their company. And it stays that way for years. Let me give you an example. Okay, because I think it would be really important for us to have a way of seeing this. An example of confirmation bias is a person who believes in the effectiveness of a certain diet, okay, may only seek out information that supports their belief. Now, let me just tell you my story. I don't have to talk about anybody else. I can talk about me, okay? So, sometimes I have believed that, what it was that I was doing in a diet was the best thing since sliced bread, because everything that I found on the internet supported it. But I was only looking for things that supported it, and I wasn't looking for anything that contradicted the way that I was going to do it. And finding later information that might have just popped up, or that someone provided me by the way, I was able to see, oh, you need to look a little deeper into this, because this could be a problematic situation. So understanding that you are sometimes your own worst critic, or your own worst assistant, okay, when it comes to, confirmation bias, because sometimes you are only looking for what you want to see. So the challenge is to overcome confirmation bias. You challenge your own beliefs and seek out diverse perspectives. Find people that don't think the way you think or that may have more experience than you do in areas so that you can have more a more open scenario when you're looking at a situation that will help you to see, other perspectives. I talk to people all the time, and I talk about the fact that my husband and I, we don't argue. And there's a reason for that, because sometimes, and I might have said it on a podcast previously, I'm looking at a chair and I only see, three legs, but he's able to see four legs. Does it make me right and him wrong? Because from where I stand or my perspective, I can see three legs. I could be standing there all day arguing if there's only three legs to this chair. But because he has a different viewpoint or vantage point, he has a perspective that I need to entertain so that I can get a better concept of what is really going on. Coach Crystal is telling us we also need to accept that only ignoring an alternative of a helpful diet or of information, and so that this is really important that we have, these other alternatives. Because if we don't have these other alternatives, sometimes we can make a poor choice. We really can. So let's look at anchoring bias. Now, this is one that is, often uh, the case for people who have very strong personalities. They have an over reliance on their initial information. And I have seen people go toe to toe with others in a company over initial information. Yes, if I didn't give you anything new, you should use the information that I gave you first. However, it's important that you understand that an over reliance on initial information without checking to see if there's anything new, could land you in a position where you're operating differently than it was intended. So, having anchoring bias is really when people place undue emphasis on the first piece of information that they received without seeing if there was any follow up, any feedback, anything else that came that was new. Asking simple questions, to your supervisor, your manager, to whoever it is that you're working alongside of, can provide you other information that could, get rid of that anchoring bias, right away, and show you a better way of doing something, or give you more information to make sure that it's done well, or for that matter, if something has changed because of the way things are going, it could provide you everything that you need to do a much better job. Okay. So what is the effect of anchoring bias? Well, the initial information becomes an anchor, influencing subsequent judgments and decisions. And if that anchoring bias or the information that you had is obsolete, then you could find yourself in a huge issue. Okay. Well, I should say, with a huge issue. So, an example of an anchoring bias is a salesperson may set a high price first, making subsequent offers seem more appealing. Mm. Yeah, that's a real good one. And in the case of a person that's doing a service, what somebody might do is they might base the way that they're serving the clients on initial information, only to find out that that information has now expired and clients have access to other things that were not afforded them initially. So yes, anchoring biases is sometimes a real big issue in a company, and we have to be able to have a way of checking to make sure there's no new information that has replaced what we're using. All right. What about the availability heuristic? This is judging likelihood based on readily available information. Oh, I love this one, because this is although I do call, YouTube University, but there's a lot of good and not so good information available, in the internet and on YouTube and some other places that are more likely the place that people will go to first to find, what they're looking for. So you've got to be able to understand that maybe the readily available information was closest to the door. Again, going back to our refrigerator concept, what's in front may not be the most important or likely, to be correct, choice for you. And so let's look at the concept here. The bias occurs when we overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily recalled or readily available in our minds. Sometimes information has replaced other information that might be, there, and we just, because it's easier for us to go along and use was easier to find or easier to recall, we could end up in a situation where we're having the availability heuristic operating at a very high level in our life. And let's give an example here. We may overestimate the risk of plane crashes because news coverage makes them more memorable. Yep. I know people who won't fly today because they are concerned about the plane crashing, only to find out, that a car accident is a lot more likely than a plane crash. So, what is the importance of the availability heuristic and doing something different? Well, it's crucial to consider a wider range of information and not rely solely on what's easily accessible. Because when you are in a situation where, that concept of, okay, well, I found this in 5 different places on the internet, so this must be true. You sometimes will make a whole decision in your life or for a company or for something that you're doing within the company based on the information that you found. And so you got to be very careful of that and make sure that this is not something that is, that you're doing, and making a habit of doing. So, what are the strategies for overcoming cognitive biases? Mindfulness and critical thinking. Okay, so let's take a look at this, because we want to see, how we can overcome this concept of, having this thought in my mind that it must be the truth or it must be the way, because it's what's in my mind. Okay. Being aware of our own cognitive biases is the first step to overcoming them. When you are paying attention to the fact that you have a bias, when you are, actually looking at what that bias might be and how that bias might affect you in making a good decision, it will change how you operate, in your decision making. It really will, because you'll start first by saying, okay, is this decision the best decision because of the fact that I thought, through everything, or is it the best decision because of the fact that this is what I think? And Crystal's, again, Coach Crystal's coming with some hard stuff over there in the chat. She says, add overthinking too, because this will add more complication and confusion with your decision making. And it does, second guessing yourself and always trying to overthink, and make sure just to make sure. And sometimes that adds so much time into a situation that you missed making the right decision. Okay. All right. So you got to challenge your assumptions, question your own beliefs, and seek out diverse perspectives to add, value in your situation and avoid confirmation bias. It really does help when you are, paying attention to what you're thinking based on where those thoughts came from and what's available in terms of the vast array of information that might be out there to help you make a much better decision. And then critical thinking is important, because if you're able to analyze information objectively and considering all relevant factors before you make the decision, then it does help you to get rid of the cognitive bias. And also seeking feedback from colleagues and others who are, there is very helpful because it helps you to, identify the bias and gain a fresh perspective on everything that is considered, when you need to make this decision. Okay, so with regards to decision making frameworks, what are some ways that we can structure our approaches so that we can make a better decision? Well, I've got four here, or actually three. And so we're going to take a look at them. Having a decision matrix is a very important. And this is a structured approach for evaluating multiple options based on defined criteria. And so a lot of times, I will draw out a diagram and I will have the approach on paper, okay, or in my iPad so that I can see how, to get to this decision that I'm trying to make, and what the criteria might be. So let me give you an example of what that could look like. When Red Worldwide was trying to decide whether or not we would take all of our coaching sessions online as opposed to continuing to see clients in the office for sessions, there was a tremendous set of criteria that we had to evaluate to make that decision. At one point in time, we had, and we still have the beautiful office in Fort Worth, but we were limiting ourselves, I think, to only serve the people who were in our neighborhood, okay, per se, and our neighborhood being the Dallas Fort Worth area mostly. And it took us a lot to see that we were, offering a ton of services that were, available only for people in Texas because of some of the reasons of, the way the funding came and how people had to be in Texas to gain access to certain types of funding as a business owner that we were offering, and certain types of services that were free to or low cost to them, they could only get if they were in Fort Worth area. And we had to see how many people could we actually serve with that small number. And we could have made the decision to only serve people who were in that area and just concentrate on really digging deep to find the people in our neighborhood that we could serve. But when we saw the value of being able to go beyond our zip code zones and go into other places, other states, other countries, other continents, okay, and other countries. It changed our viewpoint. And so our criteria expanded, and we expanded our mission so that we could make it possible so that every person that had a business or that wanted to open a business or that had a product or a service that they were really wanting to put forth in their communities had access to us and what we offered, because we saw the value of what we had, and we had many people asking for the services who were not anywhere close to where our offices were. So we started investing in technologies that allowed us to get to people quickly online, okay, and that allowed us to travel. We invested in technologies that gave us the ability to, during the pandemic, get on the road. And some of those technologies were vehicles that allowed us to get from one place to another, even if it were 1,800 miles, okay? And we did it. I mean, because it was not convenient for us to fly. There were lots of things that were happening. I got COVID on the plane, and then we had to minimize the, risk and make it so that we could have meetings where 20 people could come in, even if they were masked or whatever the situation was that was required at the time, were in place. We were still able to serve more people, in diverse locations. And so I needed to share that because I think it helps you understand, evaluating the multiple options based on a set of criteria that helps you to see what is the best practice, the best option, and choosing hopefully a practice and an option that fits. Okay, together is going to be the way you'll go. And then the old fashioned pros and cons analysis. I love this one because it's been around a long time and it's very simple. People write down on a piece of paper, first of all, they fold the paper in half. They've got pros, they've got cons, and they just make a list. And so they weigh the advantages over the disadvantages of each option. And some of those advantages and disadvantages are very, very important to understand that they're not always weighted equally because some disadvantages could outweigh 10 advantages based on the prospective issues or consequences or results that might come about from you moving forward in a way. Coach Crystal saying also add time deadlines when making a decision to assist with continued productive progress to prevent stagnation or procrastination. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. The initial decision can more than likely be pivoted when you have more information, and it's very true. So, having again the opportunity to do the decision matrix or even using the pros and cons analysis, fits right in there, with having some time deadlines because you don't want to be pros and consing it, for days. Sometimes it may require that you get feedback from other people, but decisions can get made a lot quicker, when you are using, a deadline. When you say, okay, I'm giving myself, today to make this decision. And this means that I'll have to be scurrying along to get research done so that I understand what the pros and cons are, or so that I have the defined criteria, to actually make a good decision on all of the options that I have. Then let's talk about the SWOT analysis. I love the SWOT analysis because having the ability to see the approach, or see the item or the phase or the project or the process through the lens of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats can really help you to either pivot or pursue. Sometimes we are looking at things and it's like, you know what, we are good. We got a lot of strengths, but our weaknesses are, so much of a weakness that it's costing us lots of money, and so when we start looking at the opportunities and the threats, sometimes the threats are going to be so deafening that it poses a real risk to the company's survival. And so having the SWOT analysis and being able to say, these are the areas, these 3 or 5 bullet points are the areas where we're doing well, and these are the areas where we really, really need to pay attention to what is happening so that we don't find ourselves in a situation that is costly, or for that matter, that could cause the company, a great dysfunction. So, what is the conclusion? Well, making better decisions through our self-awareness and improved techniques, does help us to avoid cognitive bias. And so, the first area, our self-awareness, you want to recognize your own biases, your own cognitive bias, and actively seek to mitigate their impact. If you find yourself with these biases and they are not, helping you function in the manner that you should, then, do the things necessary for you to step back a minute and take the time to remove the bias so that you can move forward with the right decision for the company. And then, of course, you want to employ critical thinking, develop the ability to analyze your information objectively and make informed decisions, and involve people when necessary. If you find yourself in a place of indecision or where you just can't seem to see things clearly, involve other people that you trust to help you as you're looking at the situation so that you can gain the right perspective. And then lastly, we want to have some structured approaches. Utilize decision-making frameworks, the ones that we've talked about today, to ensure thorough considerations of all your options. It's important for you. If it's the pros and cons, then use the pros and cons. If it's the SWOT analysis, then use the SWOT. Whatever it is that's going to work for you so that you can make sure that that approach leads you to a decision that is the best decision for your company and for yourself. Well, this has been Dr. Patience Jackson Rose with Co-working Live with Red Worldwide, and on our Focus Friday. And we are just excited that you have been here with us today to learn about these different strategies and how the strategies are able to help you in your decision making. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.